start with. Islam basically, we know that the usual traditional introduction, Islam is submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's taken from the word salam, which means peace, and we know all of that. But Islam in general is a way of life that has both sides, the theoretical, if you will, ideological side to it, which basically gives you a unique, distinctive outlook to understand what life and events, what's going on in this life is all about. Because to a human being, it's a puzzle. When he comes or she comes to this dunya, they start noticing things happening around them. And they need explanations to what is happening to them. They see people come to life and people die, and they see trees coming up and then dying. They see people building streets and then demolishing them and building new buildings and so on. There is constant movement and constant change at every level, whether it is political, social, financial, all kinds of changes that are happening in the world, whether they are natural or they are man-made. So people want to understand what's going on, how to look at these events that are happening, and where do they stand regarding what is going on. The ideological part of Islam gives you the mindset to tell you who you are, where you came from, why you are here, and what is going on in the world, so that you will have a solid ideological frame through which you can approach this life and approach issues in this life. You understand the first part? That is what we call Aqidah. The Aqidah, now unfortunately nowadays most Muslims inherit their Aqidah from their parents it's like a box that they receive. It's a closed box they receive from their parents and they pass it on to their children. You are a Muslim, you have to believe in Islam, believe in Allah, believe in whatever, and that's it. But they never open that box. Somebody has a treasure, but he doesn't know the value of it because he doesn't know what's inside that box. That is the case of most of the Muslims. He will tell you, yes, I am a Muslim, I'm ready to die for Islam. But he doesn't know what Islam, what are the major ideas of Islam, what are the major themes, of Islam. Some schools also teach Muslim children Islam. I studied Islam back home, in the elementary school, in the intermediate school, and the secondary school. I studied Islam. They give you pieces and bits here and there. How to pray, for example. You have to remember certain ayahs, how to remember certain ahadith, and some moral, classes about being honest and stories about the Prophet ﷺ. And you end up with some knowledge of Islam, but it is not combined. It does not form in your mind a framework, an ideological framework, so that you become a person who has a solid frame of Islam, what it is, so that you can use that as a tool for you to look at events and to look at things and try to understand, what's going on. And that's why most of the people who are raised up like that, they inherited their Islam or they received it from the school that they attended or from some khutbahs, in the masjid on Friday and things like that. They have pieces and bits. To them, Islam is not complete. They do not have the complete picture. They have pieces of a puzzle, and that's all. The true belief in Aqidah is to be based on knowledge. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. That's why the Quran is full of ayats that points to certain natural phenomena and the things happening, drawing our attention all the time to use our minds. لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ. All of these ayahs tell us to use our minds, because the Islam, if you receive it as a package, it's a dead Islam. You are a Muslim. Nobody's saying that you're not a Muslim. But Islam to you, like I said, is dead. All of your actions are not going to be based on your belief. They're going to be based on other things. A lot of people, they do things in order to show off. A lot of people do things in order to gain materialistic things in this life. That is their motivation. This is not the aqidah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to think and to ponder and to reach conclusions on your own, to make sure that the information that you received about Islam are supposed to be like that. And He also wants it to be like a chain where every ring is attached to other. Every idea, a major idea, produces minor ideas that stem from it, not from alien ideas, like the faith of many Muslims nowadays are. They have a Western mindset, but based on it, they might do certain things as spiritual things, and they think that this is Islam, Allah is pleased with them, and that's it. And that's why we become, and people like that, become prey to other ideologies that they see as organized and attractive. Because Islam was never given to them in a well-structured, organized, beautiful manner, where every idea stems from another idea until you reach the basics of Islam. No, it was given to them, like I told you, something good. It's okay to say your prayers and to be Muslim and to listen to a couple of classes about Riyadh al-Salihin or Al-Arba'in al-Nawawiyya, and that's it. Then you are a good Muslim. That is not the kind of Islam that Muslims should have. That is not the kind of Islam that the Sahaba had. And that's why they were able to do things that we are not able to do. The Sahaba were able to conquer the world, basically, literally, at their time. And imagine, the world around Arabia was way more advanced ideologically and culturally and even physically than the Bedouins in the desert of Arabia. But those in the desert of Arabia, with the true understanding of Islam, were able to crush cultures of the Persians and cultures of the and make them Muslims with a new outlook to life that is based on Islam. Imagine, some countries are very rich in their cultures and religions, India and Persia, and Africa, still they became Muslim and they adopted Islam. That's why the Quran not only wants us to understand Islam only, but He also wants us to understand other ideologies and other ways of life. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us about atheists who said, وَقَالُوا إِنْ هِيَ إِلَّا حَيَاتُنَا الدُّنْيَا نَمُوتُ وَنَحْيَا وَمَا يُهْلِكُنَا إِلَّا الدَّهْرُ. These people existed in the past, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered them, so that we have ready answers for these people when we meet them. He talked about Christians, He talked about Jews, He talks about the local pagans that there were at that time. In order for a Muslim to be open-minded, he knows what's around him, he knows what ideas are there, what ways of life are there, and he is confident that his way of life, Islamic way of life, is the superior way. And he's the one that deserves, well, not deserves, but we are honored actually if we live based on the way of life of Islam. There is the first part. Now, is this kind of aqidah taught nowadays and presented to Muslims nowadays in schools, in universities? No. That's why schools and universities, even Islamic schools and Islamic universities, are not producing Islamic characters. They are producing Muslims who have some knowledge in certain areas. That's it. But not Muslim thinkers. Not Muslims who can write books and books, if they want, about issues based on their understanding of of Islam. And that is why on the second half of Islam, which is the Sharia, which is the law, nowadays, what do Muslims do? They import the Sharias of others and they stamp it as being Islam because they themselves cannot produce and make ijtihad anymore in issues. Most of the so-called Islamic countries, their constitutions are the French constitution with some alterations and changes. Most of them. Most of the laws nowadays that are presented to people are Western. They don't have anything to do with Islam. And not only that, but the biggest betrayal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's religion is when you have certain mashayikh and some of them out of ignorance, and I'm sure, and some of them, they know what they are doing. That they're basically distorting Islam. When you're telling me that such and such Islamic committee has approved Islamic banking. What's Islamic banking? Is there a thing in Islam called Islamic banking? Banking is banking. You cannot make it Islamic. Banking means that there are money shops here and there. Their business is to make money out of money. They rent money for people, they borrow money from people, they sell money to people, they buy money from them. It's a shop that does that. And that is based on their way of life, their aqidah, because they think money is a good. It's not a standard, but it's a good, like any other things, like cars, like food, like, it's just a good. Islam, money is supposed to be a standard. A standard doesn't go up and down. It's supposed to be fixed. And money cannot generate money by itself in Islam. It's haram. Anything where money generates money is haram. There has to be labor added to it, whether your own labor or the labor of a partner, who is in partnership with you. But money should not make money. That is riba. And riba literally means sucking the blood of people. The rich sucking the blood of the poor. That is what making money out of money is. You're telling people, my money is more important than you. Because you can use your labor all day, you can make 15 cents. I can invest $100,000 and make 10 times what you have made without doing anything, sitting in my place. What does that mean? Mean that money is more important than human effort. And that is what capitalism is all based on. How dare these people import such a system which is based on their kufr way of life and apply it on Muslims and then give it an Islam approval? You just change certain names instead of saying that the interest rate is 5%. Greenwich time, 2 o'clock today, Greenwich time. Yeah, you say the fa'idah is, the ribh is, the benefit is 5% today, 2 o'clock, Makkah time. Now it became, it's like taking the label of a bottle of whiskey and putting Surah Al-Mulk in it. Does it make a difference? No. It's still haram. It is still the same thing. Nothing has changed. But what does that indicate to you? That these people are culturally defeated, that they no longer believe that Islam can solve their problems, so they have to import, solutions from outside. So you have the grinding on both sides of Islam and Islamic way of life. The Aqidah and what worsens the problem is that those who are supposed to be teaching people what is right and explaining to people what is right are part of this huge westernization machine that is grinding Muslims. When you have sheikhs who never talk about a public issue, never. All of their ahkam that they talk about is how to make wudu and how to pray. Yeah, actually people learn how to do when they are 6 years old one time in their life. That's it. That's all you need. You don't need to keep listening to the same thing. You become stupid. That's what's going to happen. Your thinking has become limited after a while, and because of repetition and repetition, you're training mind to become slow, because there's going to be another chance. That's basically what you are doing. When you summarize Islam in 2 or 3 things that have to do with appearance, not with substance, you know, people who make big issues, how long your beard is, and how long your throat is, and how long you, as if the ummah is, you're supposed to have a short dress, and you have to have a beard so that the kuffar can pull you by your beard and kill you easily. Where is the logic in all of that? Even Umar radiallahu anhu was asked by somebody who is from Sham. He went for Hajj and he met Abdullah ibn Umar, and he told him, let's say that the Romans attacked Sham, Syria. لو داست خيل الروم أرض الشام فأتيت هذا البيت, and I came to this house, الكعبة, with the niyyah of i'tikaf, and I spent my time making prayers and fasting and doing, would that be a good thing? قال له أنت إذا ممن يتخذ دينه هزوا ولعبا. You are one of those who make the religion of Allah jokes and entertainment. When the Romans come into Syria, your duty is not to go to the Mecca and make i'tikaf. Your duty is to go and face them. Have we heard a alim stand up and tell his president or his emir, or do not fool us? You're taking our children into the army, and we have Muslims, we have the kuffar slaughtering Muslims, and you're watching. You move away if you don't want to, and we'll take care of our business, or do what you're supposed to do. Have you ever heard it? When in the Ummah of Muhammad, Wallahi ya Ikhwan, Shaykh Muhsin, these are things that when you think about them, and you think the level where we Muslims have reached, the bottom that we are in right now, wonder, I don't think that Muslims have ever been like this. I mean, there were ages and circumstances where a group of Muslims in one side, geographical side, for example, were weak and they had problems and difficulties and attacked by their enemies, but the rest of them all be healthy. That's what used to be. Nowadays, it's everywhere. Same disease everywhere. And we are not only living under the Western culture in our own countries, our own syllabuses, in our, مناهج التعليم, they are designed in the West and taken and written by the West in some cases. Imagine the Ummah of La ilaha illallah, the book that says a tarbiyah diniya, religious training or whatever, is not written by Muslims. You find a Muslim name on it, but it was put based on the recommendations of non-Muslims. Imagine, this is what is happening to an ummah that used to teach the world all kinds of knowledge. That's how we became nowadays. And then, like I said, the so-called ulama and so-called shuyukh, they summarize Islam in 10 or 15 things, and they keep talking about them until they turn Muslims into dumb people, or people basically who are fed up with all of this talk that is to them nonsense and a waste of time, while they have real issues that nobody talks about. Nobody addresses what Islam says about them. I said it one time to one of these mashayikh from the Saudi Arabia, the Gulf area. I told him, have you ever given a lecture about the ahkam of oil in Islam? Is there ahkam regarding oil? Who's supposed to take it out of the ground, and what's supposed to be done with it, and the revenue from it, where should it? He told me, brother, this is the subject of Wali al-Amr. He has counselors and he has specialists and he has I told him, as far as I know, the Wali al-Amr does not have any Islamic advisors who tell them what to do with oil. And let's say that he has. Why is it prohibited for the rest of Muslims to know the ahkam of their religion? This is part of your Islam. Why don't you talk about it? You don't. This same Shaykh is willing to spend 1,000 hours explaining to people ahkam, like I told you that you are supposed to learn one time in your life, and go into very little details and turn every small stone that he finds in the issues, and talks for hours about things that take 2 words to answer, but not when it comes to subjects that have to do with the ummah. And then the same Muslim tells you, why doesn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala solve our problems? Who told you that Allah is going to solve your problems? Allah wants you to solve your problems. If you don't solve your problems, He's not going to send malaika for you to do your job. And if you do not change it, Allah will not change it. As a matter of fact, Allah will punish you too. On top of it, you know the famous hadith, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the malaika to go destroy a village, they went down and they told Allah, well, there's a person who is a worshipper. He worships you day and night. Allah told them, start with his house. Turn his house first upside down, and then go to the others. There are priorities in life. Muslims need to understand what Islam is. They need to know the major ahkam of Islam. They need to hear classes about Al-Hakimiyyah. Al-Hakimiyyah, who has the authority to tell people what's right and wrong? Who has the authority to force people to do certain things and prohibit people from doing certain things in the society? How the society itself is supposed to be structured? What are the institutions, social, financial, political, that are supposed to be in the Islamic society? Nobody talks about that because nobody wants Muslims to understand their Islam that way. They want Muslims to understand their Islam like the West understand their Christianity. That these are matters that have to do with the akhirah, and they have to do with spiritual relationship between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and maybe some morals that help you to be a good citizen, obedient to the laws of kufr. That's all. Nobody explained to us what is Dar al-Islam and what is considered to be a Dar al-Islam and what is Dar al-Kufr. And if you talk about these things, they will tell you you're a Khariji. These are the ideas of the Kharijites, who doesn't like the situation of Muslims, so they leave them to another realm outside Islam, because to them Islam means that you're supposed to follow whoever is in charge, like the sheep follow the shepherd. That is their Islam to them. They want to make you a good citizen, who obey whatever the Wali al-Amr says, whether the Wali al-Amr orders you to do haram or signs in your name treaties that are haram, or do that's okay. That is not a religious matter. That is left to Wali al-Amr. There are ahkam that are clear in the Quran. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, وَأَنِ اسْتَنْصَرُوكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ فَعَلَيْكُمُ النَّصْرُ إِلَّا عَلَى قَوْمٍ بَيْنَكُمْ وَبَيْنَهُمْ مِيثَاقٌ. If Muslims are attacked by the kuffar and they ask you for support doesn't mean that you send some charity to them. That's not support. Support means that you send an army to them in order to help them. Then you have to do it. You have to, as a Muslim society, you have to. Us, we sit down and we watch Muslims slaughtered in Bosnia, Muslims slaughtered in Chechnya, slaughtered in China, slaughtered in India, and already we turn to Allah and we say, Allahumma inna la namliku illa du'a. We are failures. We cannot do nothing. You do something for them. That's the attitude of Muslims, unfortunately. And until we change that approach of understanding what religion is, and the major ahkam of Islam, then our situation will continue. It's going to worsen. If things continue like this, things are not going to get better, because we are not at the rock bottom yet. Still, there is some more to go. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَنْ يَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ لِلْكَافِرِينَ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ سَبِيلًا. Muslims are not supposed to be under the authority of kufr. And you have mashayikh who gives you that even if your hakim is a kafir, it's okay, that's all right. You don't want chaos. Islam does not encourage chaos. He himself tells you that I am a socialist, I am a Marxist, I consider Islam backward, and I fight it with his own tongue. And still they tell you he's a Muslim because he prays on Eid Day. That's the kind of understanding of Islam that we have. We have somebody corrupt who is in charge, and this corrupt, violent, tyrant person has whips somebody in charge of the economy to make sure that the people are poor and always poor, because if they have something to eat, they're going to start thinking. He doesn't want them to think. Some secret service that is listening to anybody who says any word that does not praise the tyrant and his system will go to jail. And some sheikh who is there to torture people even more every day, telling them you're guilty, you are bad, you are no good, you are, and then follow the wali al-amr because that is the way out. Everybody is torturing people, and Islam religion has become a way to torture people. And you have people nowadays, some mashayikh, digging out issues that divided Muslims in the past and continue to, as if this is the time to discuss whether Allah has real 10 fingers or not. Yeah, people will fight over it and accuse others of kufr and accuse us of just talking about issues like that. And if you do not agree with him, that these 10 fingers are real or these things are symbolic or legal, they will tell you you're a kafir. You're not a Muslim, you're my enemy. And you have people who are accusing others of all kinds, or because they belong to different groups that they have divided themselves into. I heard, wallahi al-azim, I heard people curse the Hamas people. I'm not a Hamas, and I'm not a supporter of Hamas. I think Hamas is a product of the political arrangement of the area. It was created by certain countries, in the area. But to curse them while they are fighting, with the kuffar, and to tell them they are not a Muslim, they are Khawarij, they are the dogs of Shia, they are. I hear these things with my own ears. Yaki, this is the time to express the hatred that you have and the thing that you have. Say, I do not agree with them. They are Muslims, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give hidayah to them if you think that they are not and you are. Because these people, both of them, are misguided to me. The problem, like I said, is that Muslims, because they do not have the full understanding of what Islam is and what religion is, and that Islam is a way of life, it is bigger than these little bickerings and these little problems, and because it deals with the major issues of the world. Have you ever seen a Muslim economist standing next to a German or Japanese or whatever discussing some global economic issues, what to do with the resources of the world? Well, you not. You find a lot, sitting in masajid and, doing what they are doing, and they are called ulama. But if you're an alim, go and show your ilm of Islam to the world. And then they turn into conferences, the global conference for such and such issue, and then they come up with an issue and they try to turn the attention of Muslims away, from their reality. When it comes to praising Islam in general, you have a lot of talk about that. When it comes to let us understand what this Islam that you are praising, what is it? They will go again and become narrow-minded and start talking about it. I asked some of the mashayikh in a nice way, and in the middle of conversations. I do not like to make people feel that I am questioning them or I'm testing them but we'll pass in on, as a simple inquisition. Somebody asked me, what is the political system in Islam? What should I tell? Tell you, أمرهم شورى بينهم. Talk about shura, talk about, I tell them what is shura. I mean, they want something real, something that they can see, something that they can feel. He started talking about the parliamental elections and about democracy and about the same Western things that we have here. This is not Islam. You're explaining to me Western ideology, Western religion. I want what shura in Islam. What is the system of ruling in Islam? Same thing when you talk to them about the economic system of Islam, they will tell you zakah. التكافل الاجتماعي, and zakah is important, and zakah makes people feel that they are equal, and zakah is a single hukum. I'm talking about the overview of how wealth should be handled, how the wealth should be distributed in the society, who's in charge of what department, what tools and departments that exist in Islam in order to implement these ahkam. And that's what I want to hear. You will not find that a Muslim with that vision of what Islam is. But he will tell you Islam is the answer. Islam will answer all of the questions. Islam will solve all the problems. How? How? Everybody agrees with you that Islam is like that. Have you ever discussed how does Islam solve the problem of healthcare in Islam? Or educational policy in Islam, what is supposed to be? So that it can compete with pioneers in this matter in the educational system of Germany or Korea or Japan or United States or others? Do you have a policy like that is written? Do you see books written about these things to start with? No. But how many books can you read about the different opinions regarding the length of the lihya? Hundreds. Hundreds. You find ahkam that deals with that issue. This is the production of a sick situation. And that's exactly what it is. Because we lost our understanding of what Islam is. We lost the big picture. Okay? Anything now goes as being Islamic. It's a big problem, brothers. It is a reality that we live in. I think the task is very, very difficult. But first, it is worth it to do it. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قالوا لما تدعون قوما الله مهلكهم أو معذبهم عذابا شديدا قالوا معذرة إلى ربنا ولعلهم ينتهون. Those who want to be in the charge of understanding and explaining Islam is do it first of all to give themselves an excuse in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I have done my part. I've said, I explained, and I did what you wanted me to say. And then because there is hope that the Ummah might understand and might change. So the task is difficult, but it is worth it, both sides. When it comes to ajr from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not let this ummah down. The sleep might be long, and it is long. There are centuries that have passed already of Muslims since they had a clear understanding of Islam, what it is. The last 300-400 of Islam, we are in the bottom. In our history, we are in the bottom. We had some major or few battles that we won militarily, for example, here and there, but when it comes to our level, ideological level and cultural level and understanding of what Islam is, it has been going down, including the second half of the time of the Ottoman Empire, الدولة العثمانية، الدولة الإسلامية العادية كانوا يسموها في زمانهم. But that is the reality. Spread knowledge, spread Islam, and I am telling you, do not listen to Mashayikh Su, because these people want to numb you. They want to make you somebody who doesn't think. The maximum that they will make you is a memory of a computer, that you memorize certain things and you memorize, and that's it, but never think. They don't encourage you to think. They never encourage you to understand what Islam is as a whole. They want you to learn some things that have to do with you as an individual. Some, not everything, as an individual. But that's it. But when it comes to public affairs, stay aside. That is not your realm. You're responsible for yourself. You're not responsible. Wallahi, sometime I had a discussion some time ago, 20 years, 30 years ago, with someone, a Muslim, a devout Muslim, a good Muslim, mashallah, about some agreement, I forgot what it was at that time, where the president of a certain country borrowed a certain amount of money, billions, from the international bank. And I told him, you know that this is haram. International bank, first, it's a tool for the West to control other countries. Second, riba is haram. And he told me, what do I have to do? Why are you asking me this? I don't deal in riba. I told him, you are. Because this man, when he borrowed the money in your name. He went there and he told them, I am the president of such and such country, which you are a member of, and you're holding its passport. In their name, I want to borrow $20 billion. Whether you like it or you don't like it, he did it in your name. And since you never raised your voice and said what this crook has done is haram, I don't have anything to do with it, you are complacent and you are silent, you agree. That's the meaning of it. And you're going to pay the debt. He is not going to pay, the president. You are. He's going to take taxes from you and give it to the international bank. And if the interest goes up, your taxes and the ways that the state steals you are going to go up, as well. But I don't blame him. Because this is how Muslims think about their Islam. It's not my responsibility is to pray, and I pray. My responsibility is to fast, and I fast. When Ramadan comes, inshallah, I will do my Hajj, and I pay my Zakat regular, and that's it. But what the president does, what the king does, that is his business. Allah will hold him responsible. This is the understanding of reality that many people unfortunately have. Wallahi, Allah will question us about everything that these people are doing. Those who are in charge. Everything. Except those who reject. At least in their hearts, if they are oppressed and they cannot say anything and they cannot change by their hand, or at least in their hearts, that I do not agree with this is a munkar. Oh Allah, I cannot say anything because I will be punished and I cannot stand it. Those people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive them. Everybody else, everything that the hakim does in your name, you will be questioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about it. Everything. But this man represents you. You want to relieve yourself from responsibility, say this is not my wali al-amr. He is not. And everything that he does with me, he does in my name, I don't approve with it. And on the day of judgment, I will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take my right from him that he has taken. That is the right attitude in understanding Islam as a whole. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I was not prepared to give this talk, but alhamdulillah, inshallah, there is some benefit. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach us that which benefits us and to benefit us from what we learn. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا واغفر لنا واجعلنا في عبادك الصالحين. هذا والله سبحانه وتعالى أعلم وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم ورضي. There is anybody who has a good question and point, you can go ahead. Yeah.
First and foremost, Jazakallah khair.
Allah barik fik.
Two things. The Islamic bank. So you are saying because of the name itself came from the Western country, so there is nothing called Islamic banking. So let me give you an example. For example, in Kuwait, there is Kuwait Finance House, and who is in charge are ulama, trusted ulama, as I think. So they, for example, they depend on murabaha, takaful, something like this. My second part, so do you think that what do they call it, like companies, I don't want to name companies here in the United States, who give you money to buy a house, also they are not Islamic?
Oh, those are not Islamic to start with, we know that. Bank of America is not Islamic.
Not Bank of America, I mean like there are few companies here.
Oh, what they call Islamic things. Okay.
Guidance.
Well, regarding the first, what matters when it comes to hukum, what is called al-manat in fiqh. Al-manat means the reality of what you are looking at. The reality of what you are doing. Because the Prophet ﷺ says, يأتي على الناس زمان يشربون فيه الخمر يسمونها بغير اسمها. There will be a time when people will drink alcohol and they will call it something else. They will not call it khamr, they will call it something else, which means the name doesn't really matter. Even if they call it Islamic, by the way, it doesn't make it Islamic. What makes it Islamic is if it is taken from the ahkam of Islam to start with, not taken from kufr and then refurbished in order to be called Islamic. But it's a tool or a hukum or an organization or a company or that takes its transactions from Islam to start with. Then that is called an Islamic state, an Islamic organization, an Islamic company, whatever its entity, its entities. So you have to look at what these people are doing. Okay? Almost, if not all, what they are called our Islamic banking are the same like Western banking. There is no difference at all. They do the same thing. They take the money from you, they invest it in the stock market in New York or in certain major companies of the world, insurance companies, whatever it is, and they take the revenue and they give you a piece. You could have done yourself the same thing, by the way. You don't have to go to the bank in order to get 2% or 3% interest. You can go and invest that with a company or with, like they do, and get the same thing. So the reality is what makes a thing Islamic or not. Not the name, not the presence of mashayikh in it. Doesn't matter who runs a bar, whether it is a sheikh with a turban or it is a crook or it's selling alcohol to people. That's what it's called. Okay? The same thing when it comes to being the president, or some people tell you, look, then mashallah, that president or whatever prays his wife is muhajjaba, but he's applying kufr. I do not care what his wife wears. That is not my business. That is his business and Allah's business. My business is to apply Islam on me, not to apply secular laws and constitutions on me. It doesn't matter who runs the show, if you will. What matters is the show itself Islamic, taken from Islam, not from any other source, or not? That's all. If you look at what these banking, so-called banking, I'll use the example of what you call the Islamic financing in this country as an example, because that will answer your second question. Anyways, these people do the same thing like any other bank does, for one simple reason. No country in the world applies two laws on its land. No country will accept that, whether it is Islamic or non-Islamic. That is why here they will tell you, you cannot apply the Islamic Sharia when it comes to ahkam, because religion Sharia is separated from the legal system, supposed to. This is what the Constitution here says. So these people who philosophize things and use different approaches and whatever to reach the same result, like Bank of America, the same thing, and compete with Bank of America through different channels and Islamic names and the Islamic things to reach the same result. When they have an issue and they go in front of the court, they are not going to say we are an Islamic company. They're not going to say this is based on Islam, we did it based on Islam. They will use the same American secular law that Bank of America uses. Because if they say the other way, their institution will be shut down and they'll go to jail. And they know that. They know that. So, what can they do then in order to be in business? The world has good Muslims with good intentions who want to avoid riba and who want to. Let's give them something to make it appealing to them. So we will call it musharaka. Okay, if it is musharaka, taken from ahkam musharaka in Islam, go read ahkam musharaka in Islam. Can I be a partner and a tenant at the same time? No. أنا بسموه عقدين في عقد. نهى رسول الله عن بيعتين في بيعة. وقال من جعل بيعتين في بيع فله أوكسهما أو الربا. يعني if you make two contracts in one agreement, okay, then the hukum regarding you is to take the one that is harder on you, otherwise you will be doing riba. That is the meaning of the hadith. These people tell you you bought the house and they go to the bank or whatever institutions, they go, not the bank, but the whatever the property is registered, county property appraisal or whatever it is, and they give the sale contract to them that you have bought this land. And they also register that there is a mortgage on this house, on this, exactly like Bank of America. I told you, there is no difference. But to you, they will tell you, hey, wait, this is musharaka, you're our partner. They're fooling you. You're not their partner. You're a customer who bought a house. That is how you are registered in the government here, under government law. You're not registered as a partner. Okay? And no laws of partnership applies on you here. Because they consider you a customer who bought a house and whoever paid for it put a mortgage on it like any